Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be talking with comics creator and how does he do it also full-time father with a day job, Mark Maia. Mark, thank you for joining.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
A pleasure, absolutely. Now, is that piece of art behind you there, the stand-up, is that a shout out to the project that we're talking about
Not at all. It's
currently?
Ninja Turtles.
Oh, I see. I see.
There's
Okay.
April O'Neil.
I
You
see
got
that now.
Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael, Leonardo, and that catch them all. Yeah, and Splinter. I think that one's Bebop. Oh, sorry, Rocksteady. I think this one's Bebop. I believe.
Nice,
Yeah. So there's
nice.
Casey Jones in there.
Love it. Well,
Yeah. I
it was
just
the
bought that.
colors. Oh, nice. It was the colors that stood out to me because I've read the three issues of So-Called Living that you shared with me, and one of the things that stood out was, of course, the style and the story, but also it's a very colorful book as well.
Yeah. For a vampire story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just gave the title So-Called Living, but any sort of teaser, elevator pitch, anything that you'd like to share with listeners, it's a vampire story.
Yeah. So the first two books were Jack, our hero, gets our hero. He gets bitten by or gets turned into a vampire, and he's got to adapt to this new way of living.
Hmm.
Hence the title. Um, and in books 3 and 4, his adventures of learning to adapt with this uh, new situation continues. But on top of that, we're kind of cranking up the action a bit with which actually you haven't read book 4. That's when the action really kicks in. That book's pretty much all action. The, the Jack's got some nasty people following him. So as we're following his story as he adapts to this new way of living, we've got these like bad people, and they're trying to hunt him down, and Jack has no idea. So that's the premise of the overall. That's the overall like arc of the story,
Hmm.
and then it's those two stories are converging every episode or every issue. They get closer and closer to meeting. So and when they do, it gets explosive, and then it starts to get a little bloodier and a little more violent, because Jack is like comic relief, but the people that are chasing him, they're not fun people. They're kind of like the Sopranos. You wouldn't expect them to put on a clown show, like
Yeah, yeah.
so.
Now, what connected you with comics and storytelling, like initially?
Well, it's funny. It's one of those things, and I'm trying to do this as a dad of a 3-year-old. Is when I was younger, I always drew, and I always wrote stories. Like if there was ever a story competition at school, like even in grade school, I'd enter. And thing is, every time I entered, I'd win these competitions, which I was also into writing more than most of the other students that were forced to doing it. I like doing it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So and but my parents being like old school European that they don't speak or read English, so they couldn't have read my stuff anyways. So they didn't really. And when I say old school European, I mean like they fed me and make sure I didn't die. And then pretty much my life was I just ran myself. So they had no idea that I won writing competitions. They had no idea that I did any of this. And as a child, I never really shared much with them. I tell them like, "Hey, look, I won this thing," and they're like, "Oh, that's nice," and then go on their day.
Right,
That's
right.
pretty much it, right? But anyways, I always enjoyed doing that, and I got into comics when I was about 13 years old. I think it was 13. It's when Spider-Man Torment came out, like the McFarlane storyline, that
Hmm.
Spider-Man #1 Torment. That was when I really got into it. Like I was always kind of curious, but I never found the right story, and that got me into it. And then as I got older, I realized, hey, this is maybe something I can do on my own, but I didn't know how to. So now I'm an older teen, and I'm drawing pages, and I'm sending to Marvel. I was like, maybe like I never thought I could do it as a writer. I was like, maybe I'll send an artwork, and and that didn't work out. Again, I was raw. I was young.
Hmm.
I was good for like a 16-year-old but I wasn't amazing. I wasn't definitely professional material. So I ended up going to the video game industry, and I wrote stories there, and I designed video games. Then at some point I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this myself. So I was like, I don't know how to get into it. Um, I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how to get a job in the comic book industry. This thing I love, this thing I want to do. So I was just like, screw it. I'm just gonna do it myself. But when I look for research for like doing it yourself, most of the do it yourself research is, um, hey, you're an artist. Do you want to draw a comic book? Hey, you
Hmm.
want to? I was
Hmm.
like, no, I'm not an artist. Well, I am, but I'm not a comic book artist. I'm not a sequential artist. So I was like, I could do like a piece like this, but I couldn't do sequential pages. That's just not my thing. It would take me forever. Like it would be, I put out a book every 6 months with my schedule. Like it couldn't work. So I wanted to hire an artist. Um, Not to mention my style doesn't match the story I'm writing. I'm very strong, a firm believer in like the style should match the writing, the
Hmm.
voice, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, um, anyways, yeah, I decided to do it myself, and I tried partners. That didn't work out. Not in a negative way, just people get busy. You know, people have, I know a lot of artists, but they're all professionals. So they have professional lives or they have regular lives and they have the professional lives. And adding another project on there it's a hard ask for some people. So I just decided to find an artist and hire him outright. So whether the book does good or not, they get paid. So Marco's already paid. Marco's made more money on these books than I have because I'm still in the hole. Right? I'm doing Kickstarters to trying to cover the printing, and hopefully sales will start paying me back for what I paid Marco. So
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how did you go about finding an artist? What were some of the elements you were looking for there?
well, when I had a vision in my head, and just to give you a backstory, like in the video game industry, like I've worked in the video game industry for about 25 years.
Hmm.
And I've been a lot of that was has been in a director role, like an art director, a creative director. So guiding teams to like a single vision, like to produce a single product, is was my main focus. So for my book, when I wrote it, I was like, I have a focus on what I think this should look like. Now I couldn't afford Humberto Ramos, which he's one of my favorite artists.
Hmm.
I really enjoy his stuff. Ever since I was like I started reading comics, I think it was DV8 was the issues books he did, and he had the crazy like the big feet, the big hands, and like the really tiny
Right,
waists and the
right.
wide shoulders. Like, and I really liked his style. It was so over the top, and I thought I was like, oh, that kind of like deformation in body proportions and the way he draws. I thought that would be cool. So I actually did reach out to him. You know, I was like, "What the hell, right? Let's try it." And
Hmm.
he
Hmm.
never responded. He never responded, which is that's what I expected. He never responded. So then I found somebody. I found Marco, or actually somebody else found Marco. David Campetti. He works for Marvel. Oh, he has worked for Marvel in the past. He's been working in the comic industry for like over 40 years. I found him on a Facebook group, like comic book group, and at some point, our conversation went on for a while, and I was like, I'm looking for somebody who draws like Ramos. And he's like, how about this guy? And he introduced me to Marco. And I was like, done. I'll take him. So, and Marco's style isn't exactly, but he's the closest I've ever seen. And his work, you've read issues 1, 2, and 3, and 3 is not even
Hmm.
available to the public. So you got a reviewer copy.
Thank you so
Uh,
much.
so if you notice from issues 1 to 3, Marco's art style has improved. Every issue he's improved. He
Hmm.
gets
Hmm.
more and more familiar with the characters, so he's more comfortable drawing them. So that's very exciting to see that like come out in his work.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what has kind of moving from a reader, a fan to now a writer, a creator, what has that allowed you to explore?
Well, one thing I like about being a creator is the well, for first of all, I get to tell my own story, and I got to build characters of my own that I got to put in a world and just watch what they do. And that's kind of how I write. I don't know how many that's I don't have a lot of writer friends. I don't have a lot of friends that do what I do.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I that's why I've tried to put myself into groups. Like I got into a group with lesser known comics. And they're they have um lesser known comics like a group of like indie writers and creators, and they have a website. You can go there and you can support them by buying their books digitally and physically. And I don't have any books on their site yet. I plan on putting some on there, but I just wanted to get into a group of people that are like minded individuals so I could talk to them.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that changed because that helps me get through this because I didn't know what to do. I was like, I have a script, I have an artist. Now what? How do I put this together? How do I find a printer? How do I get this out? How do I get this out to people? I had so many questions. So being around people that do this, like, day in day out, is it really helps. So getting into that group, it really helped. And I also put myself in front of, when I go to cons, because I love going to cons. I've been going to Fan Expo in Toronto for about, I think, since it launched in '95. I've been going every year. So it's I went now as a creator, not a fan. I talk to other creators, other indie creators, and other professionals, and ask them for their advice, or I talk to them, or if there's somebody I admire, maybe I'll give them a copy of issue one. I was like, hey, I just wrote this. Before I wrote it, I was talking to them. I was like, I'd love some tips. What do you got? And I found sadly, there was a lot of writers that kind of more veterans
Hmm.
that were in the industry for a while, and they were kind of had a depressing view on comics. Like, don't do it, man. It's like, you think you do it if you do it if you want to have fun, but if you think you're gonna be rich, you blah, blah. Like, they're all just bitter. Like,
Wow.
they're
Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
bitter about it. Like, not all of them, but so many of them. Like, the majority of the ones I talked to, I tried to ask them for help and advice, and they were so downtrodden. It was just depressing. And I was like, I don't know. And I was losing faith. I was like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Like, right? It's every sounds so
Hmm.
depressing. Why do I want to jump into this sad pool? And then I met Howard Wong, and he does. I can't remember the name of his book. Um, but he's been doing this for a while, and he had some of the realistic points, which I understand because I've been a professional in video games, so I understand that there's a mirrored version of that in comic books. But uh he was still positive about it. Like, he was doing it for years. He was still positive. He gave a positive message, and he didn't, like, I guess, shit on the whole experience. Like, so he gave a positive message. And then I met Fred Kennedy, and he's just such an outgoing personality. And these are guys that I didn't even know beforehand, because when I read comics, I never read credits. I
Hmm.
just read the comics. So I'm starting to get to know these guys more, and they're starting to recognize me, and they'll be like, hey, I remember you from last Fan Expo or whatever. So it's cool to start kind of like just dipping my toe in those waters, in that pool, and they kind of like, hey, it's that guy. We don't quite remember your name yet, but it's that guy. We've seen you before. So it's gotten me to, from a fan to a creator, it's gotten me more into the realm. Like, indie people are super hyped on their books. They're excited, and that's the energy I want, because that's what
Hmm.
I am. I'm an energy. I'm an indie person, and then there's so many people that have been in the industry for so long, and they're so, like, just beaten down by it because they've been professionals for so long. And I get it. I get it. Like, it's the same thing in the video game industry. There's some people that'd be like, it's a mess, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know if I could ever tell somebody's like, don't bother getting to the video game industry because you'll never make money. It's like, there's plenty of money to be made in the video game industry. There's tons of jobs to be made. So it works. It's like, my message is the opposite. It's like, I get it. Like, I'm not excited. I'm not as excited about working in the video game industry as I was in the beginning,
Hmm.
because I've been doing it for
Hmm.
25 years, right? But I'm never going to, like, poo poo all over the industry, because
Right.
I've had a great career, and I've enjoyed doing it. I still do it. I still do consulting, and I still enjoy it. But the energies, I understand the energy not the same, but I don't. Once I saw those guys, I was like, I don't ever want to be that guy. I want to be more like Howard Wong, the guy who, like, kind of lifted me up and was like, no, yeah, man, this is what you got to do. Yeah, you can do it. And it's like, it can be done.
Nice.
So
Nice. Yeah.
I'd like to think, like, their stories aren't my stories, right? And I guess anybody listening to this, if you want to start your own comic book, and you hear about people just like, especially writers, and they're just kind of down on life because, like, comics didn't work out the way they wanted. Just remember, their life isn't your life.
Hmm. Hmm.
So their story isn't your story. And so you might break out of that. You might be that one. You might be that Robert Kirkman that comes out and is like, yeah, it's worked out great for me. I got a Walking Dead TV show. Everybody loves Invincible. Like, I'm living life. I've got Skybound. I got my own company now. I mean, like, things are going well for him. But at
Yeah.
some point, somebody would have told him the same thing. Come on, you're not going to do anything in here. If you do it for fun, get a real job.
Yeah.
like, I'm pretty sure he's heard some of the same things, but it worked out for him. So I, uh, I guess, sorry, that's probably a long answer to
No, it's
your
a great
simple
answer.
question.
It's a great answer. I am curious about, you mentioned working in the video game industry. So, kind of the differences in creating there versus the world of comics.
In the video game industry, it's a lot harder to do it all by yourself. I mean, there are
Mm,
people that did it by themselves, like the guy who did Stardew Valley. He did it by himself. The guy who did, I think the guy who did Braid did the art by himself too. So it's usually, but I'm like, I couldn't do it by myself because I am a designer and an artist. So I could design the game, I could make it look pretty, but I could never make it function. So
hmm
like it would never
hmm
work. You could sit there and push A all you want, but it won't do anything because I don't know how to
Right.
make it move. So I would need a programmer. And when I'm worked in video games, I've always worked with big teams and I've always directed big teams. And I like that environment. But for comic books, which is actually a lot like board games, which is another industry I'm in, um, yeah, I could do it by myself. Like,
Yeah.
although I'm doing it with Marco, but I could, it's easier to do comic books by myself. But then it's just me and Marco. But it's a project that I've taken control of, and I was like, it's a small thing that I can put out myself, and I can put in front of people, and I can fail and succeed on my own.
Yeah.
And part of again, I say fail and succeed because I understand, like I love my book. I understand not everybody's gonna love my book. I've gotten I've gotten more positive feedback than I have negative feedback, but I understand that it's going to be out there because there's some people that just aren't going to like the same things you like, and that's
Sure.
okay. But it's
hmm
hard. It's hard to not get affected by somebody's negative response. Like, yeah, positive comments make you feel good, right?
Yeah.
But one negative comment is like 10 times the impact.
So true.
So it's I don't know, man. It's rough. I think I got to start like if reviews start coming in for so-called living, I think I just got to tell my wife and be like, just could you read this? If it's good, tell me what it
hmm
is. If it's bad, just give me the constructive parts. I don't need to
Yeah.
hear about this because I did come across somebody who did not like so-called living, and I felt like their dislike of it was personal. Like I did something that triggered them, and I felt like before they even read it, I was talking to them, and they already had a negative. I was like, I don't think you're gonna like this already.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you haven't even read it yet, but I know like you already don't like me. So here
Right.
you go. Here you go. And if it was with this haircut, I don't blame them. I just got this haircut. It's terrible.
It looks fun. It looks fun. Um, yeah, I'm kind of the person that looks for what works well. I don't know. That's just me, but I'm also a longtime fan. So when somebody's working in comics and I'll say like your work looks very professional, it's very well done. So it's hard for me to like look at it and be like, oh, here, let me tell you all the things I don't like. But again, I'm a fan.
Oh, I appreciate I appreciate your honesty. Like it's yeah, not it's okay to just like something and not like something without having to be like, and this is why I don't like it. I was like, you don't have
hmm
to explain it to me. It's like that's not your job. Just enjoy
Yeah,
it or don't enjoy it. Carry on with it or don't carry on with it. That's okay.
yeah, yeah. Now, you mentioned that there's a lot of action in issue four. Anything that you'd like to say about kind of your vision for the project overall?
Yeah, I want to like this story arc. I'd like to finish in 8 issues because I have 8 scripts for this. It's possible it'll sneak into 9 or a thick 8 issue 8 because I have to tighten up that final script. But the world is going to continue after that. Now I don't know if it'll continue as so-called living issue 9, 10, 11, or if it'll start from scratch and then kind of maybe I'll just do a bunch of so-called living stories that are like compartmentalized. This is about maybe the next story is about Tim. This one's about Nick, and this one's about Marvin, or you know what I mean? Like, and it's
hmm
just their stories. Um, so sorry, what was the question? I like zoned out there for a
Oh,
second.
the vision, the
Oh,
creative
the vision.
vision.
Yeah. So
hmm
I just I just wanted myself to create a world where everything exists, which again, I guess you can say Marvel Comics, DC Comics, everything exists, right? Because as soon as they want a Dracula, they got a Dracula in there. They want a superhero, they got superheroes, whatever, do whatever. But that's their world. I wanted to kind of create my own world, and I wanted to exist at my own pace, where it wasn't so spectacular that every week was an amazing thing that kind of buried everything that happening. Like I love Marvel comics, but I read them now, and there's always an event. Like I went from
Right.
House of Fall of X to now I'm reading Blood Hunt to like, and before that's done, there's gonna be another global event that comes the next week. Nobody ever mentions it again. So I guess I want to take it more on a smaller personal take and focus on like, here's Jack, here's his guy, and here's the drama between him and his friends and the tension they're going through. And it doesn't have to be a global scale thing
Hmm.
all the time. And and if it is, I don't want it to be forgotten,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you think after an event, like I don't know if any of you guys are reading like mainstream comics. Like I haven't finished reading Blood Hunt yet, which is the main Marvel thing that was happening. I think it's wrapped up now, but it's like people are getting torn to shreds. The world is just covered by vampires. But I'm pretty sure that if I read the next week after that story was over, there'd be no mention of it. And everybody in the world would be like, "Da, da, 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 I'm getting for my Starbucks. No chance of
Right.
vampires killing me now because it's over." And so I guess that's me. I wanted to create a world. And when I create characters, I just kind of come up with their backgrounds. I drop them in a sandbox. I put them in situations and I let them go. And I don't know necessarily where they're going to end up. I might have some certain beats. Like I know, like I want, Jack to meet these vampires. I want Jack to um, end up in a coffee shop talking to his friends about his issues and or whatever. Like I might have certain beats, but how they get there is going to be different per character.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I've used this example before where it's like when I write, if I was to write a movie and I wrote a script, and the script is like, okay, guy wakes up, stubs his toe, runs to the front door because somebody was knocking on it. And like, if that scene was done by Jim Carrey, you'll have a certain vision in your head of like how that would run through. But then if that scene was cast with Denzel Washington, then you'd have a completely different scene, right? Like,
Right.
but it's
Hmm.
the same events, different scene, and it unfolds differently because of who they are. So that's what I want so-called living to be: a world that where events unfold based on the person.
Yeah. Yeah. The
So
character centered story.
yeah, I do want to have a character centered story. And yeah, I did mention action. And if you, yeah, I believe you have the cover for book four,
Hmm.
which is like a big scrap. It looks like a big fight on the cover. So that's kind of gives you an idea. And on that cover, you'll see Nick in the center. And he's the vampire. He's actually, I have the issues right here. I just happen to have them here.
Oh,
He's this guy
nice,
here.
nice.
That's
Uh-huh.
Nick. And there's Casper. Like they're on the front cover of book four. And they haven't been seen since book one. So they are main characters, but they were on hiatus for like two issues. Like books two and three, they're not they're nowhere to be seen. But in
Gotcha.
books four, they show up again, and then their roles will be more prominent from that point on. It's like I felt like they had to put Jack in a situation and then just send them off so you could follow his story and be like, oh, that's what's going on with Jack. Like I want to take the time, and since it's my story, I can take the time. I'm nobody's deadline. I was like, I want to take the time. Let people see Jack without these guys,
Hmm.
right? Like they just
Hmm.
basically just tossed him into the frying pan, and then we just watch him like dance on
Yeah.
the frying pan, burning his feet. So, anyways, sorry, I'm rambling on these answers.
No,
I'm
you are
a
good. You are
bit of a
good. You're
talker.
absolutely fine.
You did say
Um,
20 minutes per question, right?
yes, yes, I did. Yes, I did. That's absolutely right. We'll put another nickel in the machine. It totally works. I actually think, if I'm looking at my question list correctly, I think I only have one more official question. So before we get there, anything that we've missed that you want to make sure to include about the book for listeners?
Um, well, about the book itself, it's if you haven't heard of it, So Living is a dark comedy, right? The Kickstarter
Hmm.
is going to be October 1st, and that'll be for books three and four. You can get books one and two there as well. Um, and I will be making books one and two available on certain platforms, like Global Comics or whatever. But I'm looking into that now because I've never done it before, so it's all a learning process for me.
Hmm.
And but yeah, like I said, October 1st, and I'll have a combo package. So if you haven't back to the last Kickstarter, I'm gonna have a combo package. If you get one, two, three, and four, you'll save like $5, and you can get all the standards or all the elite covers, or because there's varying covers. So you'll get it at a discount if you wait till October 1st. So that's probably the best deal right now for getting the books, and then you'll get the PDF versions as well. But yeah, other than it being a dark comedy, and I really enjoy working on it, and it's been a lot of positive feedback. But I'd say it's a different take on some characters that you think you knew. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
character tropes. I think like they're familiar. Like I don't think I necessarily like zombies are zombies, vampires are vampires, but the way they are treated, the way people react to them, and the way like their environment is very different.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think that's it. Oh, one last thing: if you're going to write a comic, a support structure is is very handy. My wife, I couldn't have done it without her. So that's that's that.
Definitely, definitely so. Well, that last question is where can people go to find out more about you, to find out more about the book? And you mentioned Kickstarter, so I know they can go there, but any other spaces where they can support?
Yeah, Kickstarter. You can go right now to Kickstarter and click that notify me on launch button, and then you'll get notified on launch. And there's some information there about the book. Not much because they've recently improved Kickstarter, so you can do more on that page, on that front notify me page. But you can go to socoldliving.com. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't been to the site myself because my wife's putting it together, and she is not a web developer. So she's learning on the fly to do it. And she's also taking care of our toddler while I'm doing these interviews and
Hmm. Hmm.
doing all this other stuff. Also,
Hmm.
um, you can follow So-Called Living on Instagram. I do a lot of updates there, and I also have a YouTube channel, Board Game Coffee, which I'll usually talk about the book on there sometimes as well. But that's mostly board game focused. But that's my own personal YouTube channel.
Nice, nice. All
So
right. Well, glad to share about the work, Mark. Glad to have you back anytime. And many thanks for the creativity. And thank you also for sharing the issues. I really enjoyed reading them.
oh, thanks, man,
Hmm.
and thanks for having me on the
Absolutely.
show. This is great. You seem you're a very nice person, which is nice. It's
I
nice to have a
try.
conversation. A good conversation with good people is good.
We try. We try. Absolutely. Well, glad to have you back anytime for more conversation.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.